you remember when you got her? You had hours and hours to just drive and dream. You spent your Saturdays fixing whatever needed fixing just to keep her running right. 20 years later, isn't it time you two got reacquainted? When you're ready, we're here. Because at LMC Truck, we know that while time may have passed, your passion for her never faded. Get her back on the road where she and you belong.
Now you're watching Gearz, brought to you by LMC Truck. Keep them on the road.
You know, there's an old saying that every project has a story behind it, and that's true. Sometimes it's something you've just always wanted. Other times it's something that bears resemblance to something famous. And then other times it's something that's passed down from friends or family members. And it's those projects that carry the most sentimental value. So when we heard about a very special 57 Chevy truck going together, we knew we had to check it out.
Gearz on the Road is brought to you by LMC Truck. Keep them on the road.
Buddy Hyatt has always been a car nut, but he's made a living as a professional musician in Nashville since the early 1980s, running his own recording studio and laying down music tracks with some of the biggest artists around. But Buddy is not only great in the studio, he's also played and toured with some iconic bands as well.
In about 1998, I got a phone call on my new device, which was a cell phone that not too many people had. And there was an English-speaking gentleman asked me if I would like to go to work for Toto, the rock group. And I thought he was kidding. What would Toto need me for? I'm a keyboard player. Their main guy is a keyboard player. Flew out there thinking I was going to play second keyboard, because David Page is Toto. He's the keyboard guy. He's the master. So I walked in to the rehearsal hall and there was no band set up. There was just a keyboard and a microphone. And they all came in and he played a harmony part with one finger and said, "Sing that." And I wrote it down in the Nashville number system and I sang exactly what he played.
But nothing happens in the music industry for anybody unless you know somebody. And that somebody for Buddy was legendary guitar player Ron Cornelius. When he wasn't recording with the likes of Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen, and Johnny Cash, Ron helped young Buddy get his feet in the doors of the Nashville music scene.
He leaves out the part that for the previous 6 months, I kept getting these phone calls from this idiot down in Little Rock, Arkansas, and every time I got him on the phone, he'd be going, "You got to get down here, man. I'm killing them. I'm just killing them every night. Every night I kill them." And I kept saying, "Well, just keep on killing them, man." So one day, there he was. Buddy is an amazing musician, just amazing.
Now, I know you're probably thinking, what does any of this matter? And what about that 57 Chevy truck? I'm getting to that. Because Ron married one of Buddy's best friends, and she had a very special 57 Chevy truck. And one of her last wishes before she passed away was that Buddy got the truck because he was like a member of the family.
She said, "If anything ever happens to me, I want Dwayne," that was her older brother, "I want Dwayne to have that Nova, and I want Buddy Hyatt to have this truck. And if you don't take care of that for me, I'll damn sure come back and haunt your ass," right?
Unfortunately, this truck was no cream puff. Matter of fact, it was really rough, with a lot of rust and a lot of damage. So the first step was to enlist his friend Ty to come in and start replacing the rust with new metal. And as you can see, that meant new floors, cab corners, footwells, everything.
The biggest challenge so far was getting rid of the rust. This truck has sat for about 20 to 25 years out under a black walnut tree.
The chassis presented another challenge. Due to limited workspace, limited tools, and limited fabrication skills, upgrading the original frame was not an option for Buddy. Fortunately, he found a replacement chassis on Craigslist, complete with Corvette engine and suspension already in place. It just needs to be cleaned up and tweaked. This saved thousands of dollars and fast-tracked the project forward. However, the one area that still needed attention was the dash. Typical of old trucks, the original dash was worn and beaten and had been cut and hacked for stereos and gauges and who knows what else. This was an area we knew we could help Buddy.
But this dash is pretty rough and it's very rusty all up underneath there, so that's something we need to address.
So we hooked up with LMC Truck and put together a new dash package that would make that old 57's dash better than new. Now this included a new metal dash, a new gauge cluster filled with modern gauges to monitor that Corvette engine, new ignition and wiper switches, vent knobs, temperature controls, and of course a modern stereo system to keep the tunes cranking in the cab.
I was concerned about this dash and how we were going to make it look good, and I don't have to worry about that now.
Now, Buddy says that the plan is to have the truck painted within the next 3 months and completely finished within the next year. And that's a great plan and very doable, unless of course Toto calls and he ends up back out on the road.
And now, the Gladiator Search and Rescue Build, powered by Bestop.
Hey, welcome back to Gearz and the next step on our Jeep Gladiator search and rescue vehicle. Now, when we left off, the last thing we had done is put a 3.5-inch lift on this thing, and it helped, but those stock wheels and tires are kind of killing the look that we're after, not to mention the off-road ability of this thing. So we're going to take care of that today, and we're going to deal with an issue that comes up anytime you put on bigger wheels and tires, the brakes. Now, as most people know, when you go taller and wider with a tire, you add more rotating mass, which your brakes have to stop. Unfortunately, your stock brakes were not designed to do this. So the bigger the tire, the less braking capacity you have, and the quicker they're going to wear out. So the best way to solve this problem is to upgrade your brakes as well. Take a look. This is the Pro system from Bear Brakes, and it's designed for the Jeep JK, JL, and JT. Now it upgrades your front caliper to a 6-piston caliper and a 13.5-inch rotor. And then in the rear, you have a 4-piston caliper and a 13-inch rotor. Best part is, this bolts right in place of your stock brakes. Okay, with the rig up in the air and the wheels off, we come to the messiest part of this project, and that is disconnecting the brake hose. Because you've got to have a way to stop the flow of fluid through that hose, or you're going to take a shower in it. Now, there is a special hose tool that you can get. See, it has these big flat ends on there. It has a cam lock. You put it right over a hose, smash it down, and it seals off the hose, locks it in place, and you can do your work. When it's all done, just take it off. Do not try to do this with a set of vice grips because that will destroy the hose. If you don't have one of these tools, you just need to plug the end of the hose with the rubber cap. Okay, with the brake hose taken care of, it's just a matter of unbolting the stock caliper and removing the rotor. Next, we'll bolt a new bracket to the spindle. This is what holds the new caliper. Then we'll slide on the new rotors, bolt the new caliper in place, and reconnect the brake hose. The rear brakes are pretty much the same process as the front brakes. Remove the stock calipers and rotors. However, as you can see, this new caliper doesn't quite clear the dust shield. So it needs to be trimmed, and you can see where I've marked it to trim it. Now, you can do this with a cutoff wheel, but the quickest, easiest way to do it is with a pair of snips. Now it's just a matter of installing the rotor and bolting on the new caliper. Now, obviously, you're going to need to bleed your brakes anytime you do something like this, but you also need to spend some time seasoning the rotors and bedding the pads. And this is a process of bringing things up to temperature, letting them cool back down, and doing this several times as you break everything in. Don't skip this step if you want those brakes to work like they should. All right, Now it is finally time for wheels and tires. And for those, we went to Mickey Thompson. The wheels are called the Sidebiter Lock, and they have a cool beadlock look and plenty of strength. And the size is a 17x9 with a 4.5-inch backspace. For tires, we're jumping all the way from the stock 30-inch tire to a 37-inch tall tire with these Baja ATZ P3s. Now these have a nice aggressive tread for great traction off-road, but not too aggressive where they're going to howl like wild dogs running down the freeway, making this a perfect combination for a search and rescue rig that will spend time on the road and off. Now that, my friends, is more like it. It's amazing what a lift and a wheel and tire combination will do for a vehicle. Man, this is awesome. And hopefully now everything that we've done so far is finally starting to make sense. And we're not done yet. Wait till you see what we do next.
Shift Tech, brought to you by American Powertrain. Get your shift together.
You know, most people realize that the engine is one of the most expensive components in your vehicle. And if you take care of it, you can make it last a long, long time. That's why people are adamant about changing their oil regularly, and we shower them with gifts like the best plugs and the best wires and the best accessories. Man, we baby our engines. The transmission, on the other hand, is probably the second most expensive thing, and most people don't give it a second thought until it goes out, and then of course we cuss it. The good news is you can actually make that transmission last as long or longer than these engines if you take care of it. That's what we're going to look at today, transmission maintenance. Now, there are basically two types of transmissions out there, the automatic and the standard shift or the manual. And of the two, the standard shift is the easiest to maintain because it's just a bunch of gears in a case lubricated by 2 to 3 quarts of oil depending on which transmission you have. Now, if you'll notice, there's a drain plug near the bottom of the case and a fill plug about halfway up the side. And all you have to do is change the oil about every 70,000 miles under normal use. If you're racing or towing or hauling a lot, you may want to do it more often. Now, it's important to use the proper oil as most older transmissions used a heavier 90-weight gear oil, and most modern trannies like the Tremix use a lighter ATF type fluid. So make sure that you're using the right stuff. Now, an automatic transmission is a little more involved because they hold a lot more fluid, about 10 quarts of this stuff, and they use that fluid to basically make everything work. So they build a lot more heat, and heat is the enemy of a transmission and the fluid. So it's important to keep it fresh. Now, if you'll notice, they fill through a dipstick and they drain down through the pan. Now, aftermarket pans usually have a drain plug. Factory pans do not, which means you have to take the pan off to drain oil, and that can be a messy situation. So we're looking at replacing the pan gasket, the filter, and the fluid. Now, the change intervals on an automatic are very similar to a standard shift. Most people recommend about 70,000 to 100,000 miles under normal use. Now, obviously, if you're towing or hauling a lot or racing, you're going to want to do it more often, and you may even want to add a cooler to help this thing survive. So you can see there's not a lot to transmission maintenance. Heck, the biggest challenge is just remembering to do it.
And now, Steel Tech, brought to you by Steel Rubber Products, helping restore the car of your dreams.
You know, one of the realities of building or restoring cars and trucks is that eventually you're going to have to deal with putting in new glass and weather stripping. And we've already shown you how to remove old glass. But just because you have the old glass out does not mean you're ready to put new glass and weather stripping in. If you don't want to deal with leaks or rust or paint issues, you need to prep this flange properly. That's what we're going to look at today. Okay, the main issue that you're going to face is all of the adhesive and the rubber and the silicone that somebody has squirted in over the years. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, well, we're just going to put new rubber down, so Why take that off? Well, the new rubber's forgiving, but it's not that forgiving. If you want a good seal, all of this stuff needs to come off. And the best tools to do that is some sort of a scraper or a razor knife. All right, the next issue is paint. And obviously you need paint on this flange to protect it from rusting. But it's not uncommon, as you can see, to find a completely different coat of paint underneath that weather stripping. Not only that, it's going to have cracks in it, and then by the time you scrape that goo off, you're definitely going to be down to the bare metal in certain areas. So what you need to do now is sand this flange and paint it, preferably with the same paint you're going to use on the vehicle, but if not, make sure you use a good rust preventative paint. Now, what about these flanges like this that are damaged a little bit? Well, just a little quick hammer and dolly work, you'll be able to work that stuff right back out. However, when it comes to rust or rust damage, that needs to be fixed correctly with metal. And we've shown you how to do that in past shows. This is not the place to use filler or fiberglass or JB Weld or anything crazy like that. You need to cut the rust out and replace it with metal. Now, once your repair work is done and all your paint is on, then you can put your new glass in with your weather stripping. Now, I know this seems like a lot for something you may not see, but if you prep your window frames like this, you won't have to worry about rust or wind or moisture getting in.
And now, Parts Bin.
There's no doubt that building and restoring old cars and trucks is a dirty job, and getting rid of years of grease and grime and goo is the first thing you should do when you jump into a project. Unfortunately, most people don't do this because it's nasty and it's time consuming, and they regret that decision throughout the whole project. Now, the best way to keep this from happening to you is invest in a pressure washer from Easy Clean. Take a look. These use the pressure of water to clean your cars, trucks, mowers, tractors, you name it. Now, the simplest are these small portable units that are about the size of a shop vac. And they take the water from your hose, run it through a pump, and turn it into a high-pressure cleaning spray that will slice off dirt and grime like magic. You have an adjusting valve that lets you dial in the pressure, and you have different tips to adjust the concentration of the spray. And this inlet hose allows you to add soap or cleaning chemicals to the spray if you need to. Of course, if you have the room and would like something more permanent so you don't have to roll it around, you can go for one of the stationary units that mount to the wall out of the way. It has the same features as the portable unit, but the controls and the motor are up on top, and the hose is on a reel, so when you're ready to use it, you just pull the hose over to the project and go to work. Now, if you're dealing with something more stubborn like grease, oil, tar, old concrete, that kind of thing, you can step up to a commercial hot water, gas, or diesel-powered pressure washer that uses an oil-fired heating coil to heat the water before turning it into a high-pressure stream of hot, steamy water. This will remove pretty much whatever you want. So if you're tired of spending a fortune on rags and degreaser, and you've been kicked out of all the local car washes, well, you've been approaching your cleanup wrong. An Easy Clean pressure washer will make the job quick and easy so you can spend more time wrenching and less time washing. If you're a car builder or a mechanic, you know your main tools are your wrenches and your sockets and ratchets. But just like your technology on your cars keeps changing, so does your tools. For example, check out this new ratchet from Cornwell. Now, this is a 28-inch long, half-inch drive ratchet with a pivoting head. But the big news is it's got a super fine 80-tooth ratchet with a sealed design. So you're going to have great access to tight little areas, and you're not going to have any dirt and trash get into the mechanism and mess it up. So you know it's going to work right no matter how hard you're cranking on it or how deep in the goo you are. Even the handle is designed to give you more comfort and more cranking power. If you work on cars, you know you need to keep current with what's out there. Cornwell will make sure your tools stay current too.
What are you working on? Brought to you by Woodward Fabrication, selling quality metalworking equipment since 1966.
Today's What Are You Working On comes from Clayton. He's from Missouri, and he is 13 years old, and he says he's building his first truck with his dad. Okay, first of all, Dad, you're awesome for building a truck with your kid. That is so cool. I wish more dads did that with their kids, spent time building vehicles. Now, what they're building, check it out, is a 1978 Ford F-150 4x4. Currently has a 351 in it, C6 transmission, and a 205 transfer case. Now, he says they plan to rebuild the original engine and hopefully install a 5-speed. Now, on the axles, they put in 410 gears and they added some lockers to get better off-roading ability. And as far as the body, the cab corners, the floor pans, and the pedals are all on the list to be done this year. And then he says he wants to finish it off with headers and a 3-inch lift and 35-inch tall tires. Man, what a great plan. That's a great way to plan your project out. So guys, to help you out, we hooked up with our buddies at Woodward Fab. We're going to give you one of these shears so you can shear some metal and make some brackets and make some panels. Also, you're obviously gearheads. We're going to give you some of our Gearz t-shirts so you can wear that with pride. Also, we're going to give you a gift card from LMC Truck because I guarantee you they got something in here that you can use on that project of yours. Also, we're going to give you one of our project planning books so you can keep track of everything that you're doing. It's really important. You're going to find that out, Clayton. And of course, we're going to give you one of our little Ford tow trucks because that's just cool. All right, that wraps it up for us today. Clayton has a 78 Ford to work on. I have a 78 Ford in the other room to work on. And if you're sitting there with nothing to work on, shame on you. You need to get out there, find yourself something and start working on it. We'll see you next time.